all's good. We should have any issues connecting to the Wi-Fi. It looks like
I keep telling you, dude, it's so awkward in meetings. There's like 3 people that talk to people in class.
It is. Every now and then I will. It's just, I know what I want to say.
Other people say it.
Other people say it and better.
Well, it's like, the crazy thing when everyone that talks to me goes in that one side of the room.
It's you, me, Adam, Andrew, Chris.
Sometimes no.
Sometimes no.
It's like the other half of the room.
They're just there for the credit.
Yeah.
Which I mean, me too, but at the same time, I'm interested. Yeah, it's like I'm not biggest fan of romantic. Well, actually, that's a lie. I've never gotten into it because we didn't offer that at the high school. Philosophy is hard. Though. I know even Ed Wood taught me that. Hey, we can take a seat. We can take a seat. Okay. Okay. So say Finn's over there, we're gonna bully him.
Yeah, I made sure to make those. I need to make it for the test.
Yeah. Because I mean, I did all that quiz.
Yeah.
I didn't go to class that Friday because I was on that rail car thing. But Monday I made it up, and he took me into the English offices. And I went up there and the hallway up there, and he's like, "All right, so this is the upstairs library." It was really nice, dude. It had so many books, old books, nice air conditioning. And he's like, "Well, have fun." I was like, "All right." The second he went down and started teaching another class, I was like, "Well, time to look up the answer," and I did.
Can't blame me.
And I mean,
See, when I took it in class, it was like, either know it or you don't. I looked right at him, I was like, dude, I'm not writing anything down on this paper. I said, I haven't written anything.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is I always go with the answer that makes a little bit of sense. Mm-hmm. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with the question, I would look, it's one thing.
No, because Andrew made up the other day. I think he was also on the river.
Yeah, he went up there with me.
I told him 4th question. I was like, look, if he does these 4 questions, the last one was good.
The last one is, I can't even remember what it was. I just.
Oh, shit. That was just an opinion. I told him 3, and I was like, just have a name.
Just have a name.
Yeah. Or don't, just say you wouldn't know.
Yeah. If I had to give a label to that creature, I would say, as true as it's going to sound, a mistake. Because, well, I mean, he was like we talked about. Yeah, it's like we talked about in class. He was a mistake, but it wasn't his fault.
If Victor had any responsibility, he would have turned out the way he did.
And it's like we were talking about the first couple of weeks going over it. It's like he was so focused on whether or not he could do it, but should he do it?
He should.
It's like with science today, we have all this technology, we can bring back, we can start cloning animals. Yeah, but should we do that now?
He kept calling, he kept going on about Prometheus. Yes, he kind of was Prometheus, but he was more against Andrew. Because he flew too high on his natural talent that when he actually had to apply it,
he couldn't handle
it. Yeah. And he failed.
And now he has to pay the consequences.
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing in the story is the creature reading Paradise Lost by John Mann. I love that story. Because I went out and bought it and everything. I think it's wonderful. Take the first betrayal of human history and take it from the antagonist's point of view, and it makes so much more sense. He's like, we are these supreme beings, but then we see something tens of thousands of times smaller and weaker than us. Why are we to bow down to them? And that makes a lot of sense.
I know. It was also very poetic, the creature of self-education.
It makes me wonder.
It lacked context because he didn't have anyone teaching him.
Exactly. He didn't understand
the same reason that Victor turned the way he did. He didn't for teaching him. He said, "Oh, hey, that's bad."
Yeah, like,
The creature didn't have that. The creature was like, "Oh, this is good."
oh, this is a book? Okay, well, holy crap, it's me. Now it's time for me to exact
Humans are just like me, but they're mad at me.
I don't understand. Yeah, it's like, what is this? This is completely foreign to me. I don't, yeah, it's weird. But I think, like, I love how he connects himself to Lucifer because if you think about it, I mean, they're just the same dudes. Lucifer is God's mistake.
That also plays into when he was created, he was Victor's angel, he was Victor's ideal man. Victor shunned him, he immediately fell.
Yep. And because of that, creature is now on the loose, and he wants to exactly like, listen, you made me this way, and so you're gonna have to forever deal with me until the day that you or I die.
Victor does one of the things he gets the creature to target him specifically. That's the only good thing he does. He does it very selfish and dumb.
Exactly.
What if they have kids? So what?
Exactly. I mean, in Victor's mind, I think Victor suffers from some slight narcissistic disorder because everything he thinks he's doing is for the right reason. I know he means well, but maybe he just wants to like channel that into a different direction. Because the way that he does it is just, I don't know. I don't know. But if I were in that situation, it would look off me to do it. Just, I cannot live with that
Hello,
feeling.
everyone. Can you hear me okay? Especially those in the back. All right, good deal. I got the thumbs up. Well, welcome everyone to our latest event in the ongoing Little Kanawha Reading Series. This is our first event of the semester, but not the last, so stay tuned for more to come, especially students who are getting a little extra credit. I've got more coming down the pipe for you. Thank you all for being here. And hello to everyone out there watching this now or in the future via our YouTube stream. Thank you, Paul and Draven, for making that possible. As you may or may not know, the Little Kanawha Reading Series is a collaboration between the Department of Language and Literature, the Department of Social Science, and the Robert F. Kidd Library. Its mission is to provide a showcase for a diversity of literary forms and voices in order to acknowledge and enrich the cultural heritage of Appalachia and the communities along the Little Kanawha River. Before I introduce this afternoon's reader, I'd like to also thank Jason Gum and the RFK Library for once again hosting us and especially for providing snacks. Thank you so much. We have a wonderful poet with us this evening. Patsy Kisner is the author of 2 collections of poetry, Inside the Horse's Eye and Last Days of an Old Dog, both from Finishing Line Press. Her 3rd book, Until the Surface Breaks, will be published by Main Street Rag sometime in 2025. She's also been published in numerous journals and anthologies, and perhaps most important of all, she's a graduate of Glenville State. So please join me in welcoming back to campus one of our very own, Patsy Kisner.
Well, I want to thank you all for having me because it's really good to be back here. And as I was thinking, I graduated from here in December of 1984. So that's been a little while ago. But some things are very much the same on campus, and clearly some things are changing, but it is still, the atmosphere is still as welcoming and kind as I found it to be as a student. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And let's start some things off this evening, and first of all, I'm going to read a few poems from the collection that Jonathan mentioned, Last Days of an Old Dog. And then I want to move on to some of my newer pieces. and I'll tell you more about those as they come up. The first thing I'm going to read out of that collection is called Newborn Foal. This morning she lies wet and slick, a cherry in her eye. But by noon she fumbles to find milk. In the veil of dusk she jogs in clumsy circles, a second hand to the clock of her mother, ticking faster as she runs into the night. And this second one is called Mom's Quilt. She made it when a girl to learn to sew. Odd collars, not the best cloth, yet I kept it in the chest, treasured. But this morning I sprung the lock. As I age, I want her quilt to warm me when I read. And if, after years, I've worn every thread, that will be okay. Love is in the wearing, what no moth can eat away. If you read much of my work, or if you've read much of it, you'll learn a lot about Sycamore Creek, because we've lived there. My husband Phil and I, we've lived there for about 40 years now, and it's actually I'm the fifth generation. I live in my great aunt and uncle's house. My great grandparents lived up the road. My grandparents lived down the road. It's a place that's very rooted for me, and I definitely identify as an Appalachian writer. I'm very proud to be so, and as you'll see, place is very important in what I write. And I'm going to read just a couple short poems. This first one's called Sycamore Creek. I hear the bullfrog's throaty bellow, then you are here, dipping delicate hands into water to catch what moves, while I rest inside the cusp of memory. And this next one is called Anniversary. If I could think back to all that time has wrought, I would still stand humbled by what a second can bring, the one where a gaze caught the glimpse of another. All right. Now I want to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to be reading some new stuff that's in a manuscript that I'm just now starting to send out and see if it has a place somewhere in the world. So we'll try a few of those on for size today. And this first one is called The Best Teachers Expect the Most. Come, roll gently into your pain. Allow it to embrace with its every yearning. Rest in its pointed jarring. Feel it deep inside the fissures of neck and fingers. Reach for what it asks. Touch where it leads. Inhale what it wants to breathe. See the empty. It's trying, this hard thing. It's really trying. Okay. And I'm going to read this next one is a piece that is going to be forthcoming in the Women Speak Anthology. And that is part of the anthology is what's produced from the Women of Appalachia project, which was founded and is directed by Carrie Gunter Seymour. And you submit work, your work will be included in the anthology, and then we do tours around in West Virginia, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, various places, and we read poems, fiction, whatever it is we have. And it's also, art is included as well. So the Women of Appalachia project is definitely worth a look if you're interested in following up with that. And this is one of the poems that I'm going to have published in that anthology when it comes out the next time. And the title of it is called, How Can I Help You? The raccoon that broke into the coop didn't just kill what it ate. No, it killed them all, except the hen that hunched in the corner, feathers tattered, off balance from having her eyes clawed out, bloody sockets seeking. I've witnessed an old mare pummeled by the kicks of younger horses from some instinct to attack what's weak. I dressed the wounds with scarlet oil, picked the bloody scabs so no scars would form, then placed her in a separate field, alone. I've seen a coyote carrying the limp body of a dappled fawn and followed the bloody trail, each drop a red pinprick upon the grass until I stopped. What more did I really want to see? At the end of that long, hard day, bloody pools swelled beneath my hospital bed, but holding you close, I sang to settle your cries. Hush, sweet baby. Let Mama's love keep you warm, keep you safe, until I can teach you to howl. My husband and I, we live on a farm. I guess we're farmers technically, I guess, but probably homesteaders is more the better way to describe it. And the farm is always in my poems a lot, as is this one. This poem is called A Tapestry, and it was published in Pine Mountain Sand and Gravel. A tapestry of cattle collars shade the meadow. Reds, blacks, speckled roans. A Thomas Sidney Cooper painting could not be finer, especially with this morning's sun. A bald-faced red rests along the creek, her eyes half closed as she contemplates her could. The others wade the shining grass and munch the endless green. We venture closer, as most will come to us when we call, unaware. We are the wolves. This next poem that I'm going to read was recently published in Untelling, and it is the new Literary and Arts Journal that's being published from the Hyman Settlement School in Hyman, Kentucky, and it was their inaugural issue, and it is gorgeous. And this poem is called It Continues. We live peacefully together, you and I, a stumble of words that has no end. First, you explain, then I explain. Sometimes we shake our heads with no ability to comprehend, but still we try. It's what good hosts do, as do welcome tenants. I plant the cabbage, you plant the vine. And I'm going to read a poem now that was just recently came out. Fireside Industries, an imprint of University Press of Kentucky, just published Troublesome Rising, which is an important anthology. It's based upon the 1,000-year flood that swept through eastern Kentucky 2 years ago. And the Appalachian Writers Workshop was going on in Hyman when this unbelievable flood hit. It's like 9 inches of rain in just a matter of a very few hours, and this small, gentle creek that we're all familiar there called Troublesome became a wall of water 20 feet high over a big, wide valley there, and many people died. It was one of the most traumatic things I have witnessed. And this is a poem that I have in that anthology. It's called Flood Watching Instructions. Lean onto the porch railing. Find a grip. Steady yourself as you watch the breeding waters feed. Lift the light so you can better see. Startle when a deer rises from the swirling edge. Wet and slick, slow from stupor, yet her large sorrel eyes blink. You gasp at first, that rush of relief, but then you swallow air, shiver harder, cry because it's summer, and a doe shouldn't be alone. This next poem appeared in Still the Journal's climate issue, and I have a deep affection for compressed poems. And this poem is a series of, there's 5 6-word stanzas, and it's called Facts. Violets purple the fallen autumn leaves. February now tempts us with robins. Septic brown and frothing creeks breed. Bitter sound, that quiet of indifference. Truth is always in the garden. Shift gears here a little bit, a little different topic on this poem. It's called What Always Happens. My hope today is to listen to the rain, each spare drop that sings against the red tin roof. Such a glorious place to land. The cooling water against the warm metal. Its music will lull me to the most peaceful sleep. The sleep where rest becomes real, and once rested, the world becomes real again. All because of the seeming of opposites. It's why I love you. And in addition to that poem I read earlier, this one is also going to be forthcoming in the Women's Speak Anthology, and it's called After. So many days are a blur that I still feel their weight pressing upon my heart with the cold of frozen water. The grief has been an icicle that sometimes mercifully melts and drips. What it waters even grows. But then I feel a chill return to my bones. Teeth shiver. I can't touch until I find gloves. Breath becomes a cloud. Words become a vapor. It's hard to explain to someone who is warm. And carrying on with a little bit of that same theme, this poem is titled Just in Time. Healing does come, ever so slowly, ever so sweetly. That faint falling of a dove's light gray feather. Then, when the wolf shows up snarling at the door, you rush to greet it, and it welcomes you as you run frail fingers through its coarse fur. Because, after all, it is what eventually happens. You listen to the parable and tame the beast before it eats you. This poem is titled The Pond. blue-black sheen, a mirror reflecting oaks and willows, those leafing now together with the leaf memories of years past, caught and layered in the shine. I shade my eyes and squint. If I look deep enough, perhaps I'll see you standing on the bank, looking forward at me. And then, because I love short compressed poems, here's a couple short ones. This one's called A Better Alternative. I can choose to fill this blanket of longing with what I can give away. And legacy. Always be giving. The intent is to already be gone before you leave. And to kind of wind things up, I want to share a little bit, as Jonathan mentioned, I do have a new poetry collection coming out from Main Street Rag. It should be coming out around February 2025. It is available now for pre-order, so there's my plug for that. And I'm going to share a few poems from that collection. And it's called Until the Surface Breaks, is the name of the collection. And one of the sections in that collection is called The Farm, and I'm going to read the first poem from that section, titled The Farm. Something's always needing feeding, beaks and snouts, muzzles with sturdy molars used for grinding grain. Some days I feel like I'm breaking off pieces of my own self, giving too much of me away. At dark, I open books, read the cravings my loves have sent to me on paper. I study the lines, the perfect diction, the turn of a word in ways I could not think. I read until I'm full, then add ink to my own pages. In the morning, I'll start over, filling all those mouths with one type of seed or another. And then, what I can't forget. Swaddled by hills and a vein of creek that keeps me living, my life has evolved into passion for the roots this farm has given me, until the furrow turns and the raven black flint of an arrowhead exposes itself, burns like a woeful talisman in my hand. Observe. The sparrow tends the egg the cowbird added to her nest. She will feed the cowbird chick even as it outgrows her own. The cowbird chick will fly because of mercy. It will still lay its egg in another bird's nest. At the crossing, I watch as the sting of rising heat sends the horses galloping toward the barn, nostrils wide, manes slashing the hanging vapor. Their legs spin the wild force of motion, and when they part the creek, water washes me. This is the penultimate poem, the next to the last, and it's called Black Walnut. Summer sun glints across your surface, particularly the core of your heart that blooms across the coffee table. The bookcase gleams of arching, deepening grain, light reflecting with such shining that I watch to see if there is a side to the prism that will shift back the brightest green of leaves. And this last one, At the Creek, another creek poem. I told you there would be many. A A still pool mirrors trees, drooping willows and white-barked sycamores. I forget for a moment that what's beneath the water still moves until the surface breaks and a wilderness leaps out like a fish. Well, thank you all very much for listening to me. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, if anybody has any questions or comments, I guess, if you have comments, I'm sure Patsy would be willing to answer or address a question or comment or two, if you would care to ask. Well, I've got one that I'll get us started asking. The poem, The Newborn Foal. So, we had an argument about this in my creative writing class. So I'm not going to tell you which side I was on.
Okay.
But if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. But what happens to that foal? Does it make it?
Turns out fine. That's what
Okay.
foals do.
Okay. Well, that settles the debate, and Abigail back there is grinning, so she knows. I was suggesting that maybe otherwise, but that's the way poetry goes.
Yep.
So, yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Oh, yes.
What does poetry mean to you?
Poetry means to me, it is like breath. It is something I need to be happy. Maybe that sounds like a trite answer, but as Dr. Minton's class found out this afternoon, I can really talk about poetry. I can get pretty excited about it. I could go on and on. So I love poetry. Some of my favorite authors, I love their work. I can't wait to get my hands, when some of my favorite authors come out with new books, I can't wait to get my hands on them. It feeds my soul. And I just hope that as I try to learn more and more about the craft of poetry, wouldn't that be awesome if I could make maybe some other readers feel what other poets' poems feel to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I was at one of your readings, in June, so there, and you had a collection of books, like you're talking about love of poetry, and you had them strong all over. I mean, I'd rather get through a third of them just looking at the titles. My question was, it's just popping in my head right now. You said you like to compress poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So where did that come from?
I don't know exactly. I'm really drawn to that, and we talked about that a little bit in class, how a lot of people say it's harder for them, they tend to want to write more, and it's hard to distill it down. For me, it's been the opposite. It's been I start small, and then it's been hard for me to learn to stretch it out. And I guess that's just because, we're also very different, but I do love compressed poetry. I love small poems. I love Randy Ward's poetry collection, Whip Stitches, all those beautiful little compressed poems that I love that. But as I'm trying to expand my horizons, because a lot of the poems in my first two books are fairly short, but I'm learning to expand it a little bit. But then even in my new collection, there's some more expanded poems, but there's definitely going to be some more compressed ones too, because I love a good short poem.
I have two questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, the Hahnemann Settled School has, it has a great history in Appalachian fine arts and humanities. I'm curious how you got involved in it in the first place. How long you've been going there, gathering with the Appalachian writers, and what all. I'm kind of curious about what all goes on. See, I write history, and historians are kind of lone wolves when they write. But people who are in literature like to get together and write, and it makes y'all better. And I'm not sure that historians writing a group would necessarily make us better. But I'm curious about your experience in Hahnemann. I'm also curious about how they've how the recovery's gone. I hear people like Katie Myers been trying to get the news out about the recovery around Knott County. It's in Knott County, right? Yeah. And stuff like that. And but also, secondly, I'm really curious as to who all, what poets you were assigned and who you read on your own when you were here at Glenville.
Oh, I'll have to think back on that
So
one.
I got a Kentucky question, I got a West Virginia question.
Okay, well, we'll start with the Kentucky question, that way I can be thinking a little bit more
All right.
about the other question. But I went to the Appalachian Writers Workshop for the first time, in 2016, and I studied with Letha Kendrick.
Mhm.
And it was fabulous, life-changing. I met all these other wonderful people who were as excited about writing as I were. It was just like, I felt like I had found my tribe. And I have gone back to Appalachian Writers Workshop every year except the year one of my grandbabies was born. But they offer, so I have got to study at Appalachian Writers Workshop. I've got to study with Steve Scafidi, Mark Harshman, Nicole Brown. The list just goes on. Doug Van Gundy. I went there this past July and studied with Rose McClarney, and it was just like, oh, it's awesome. But then there's just so much other stuff going on too. It's not just who you're assigned to for your class, but there's all these other classes going on at the same time to where you just get immersed with that. But then there's also, it's not just the writer's workshop. There is the Makery, which offers online classes in all genres. So that's an awesome thing. Writers retreats where you just go down for a weekend and you just spend time with other writers and just different things. But then now the settlement school, the literary director there now is Melissa Helton, and she is the editor of their new, I told you about their new literary arts journal called Untelling. It is beautiful. And she was also the editor for Troublesome Rising. Recovery is still going on down there. It was still a lot more to do. I think there was 22 people maybe. I may not have the number quite right, lost their lives right there in Knott County.
Yeah.
It was inconceivable to me what happened and how fast that happened. And I know when I called my husband at 4 o'clock that morning and I said, it's flooding here. And he's like, well, we have floods here, it'll be okay. And I'm like, no, this is a wall of water. So many people died. And it's just like the poem I read about the deer. We were out there at the edge and this poor deer literally comes. And it was just, it affected people. It destroyed so much. It got into the basement of the Mike Mullins Center, into the archives at the settlement school. If you would have asked me, could water have gotten into the basement of the Mike, I would have said no. But the work is still continuing to restore the archives. A lot of them were just frozen until they could be individually worked on, but it's a fascinating place, and I highly recommend that if you consider yourself to be an Appalachian writer, by all means you need to check out the Hyden Settlement School and what is offered there. And as for your other question about I tend to remember a lot about the Romantics when I was here at Glenville. That seems to spring to my mind immediately, but right now I'm very much immersed in contemporary modern poetry and a lot of and regional writers. I love the work of Marianne Worthington, Carrie Gunter Seymour. I could go on and just name people that I love whose work I appreciate so much and love to read, but. I just would recommend everybody trying to find their place, find your tribe, go to conferences, connect with other writers, go to writers group, or book clubs if you just want to read. If you don't want to write yourself, write for your own self, but just to get connected with the fabulous things that are happening in literature today, and I'm very impressed with what's happening in Appalachian literature at this period of time. It's pretty impressive.
Any other questions?
I have another Glenville question. What professor stood out to you most when you were here?
Oh, Wayne Day was it?
Hmm?
My advisor.
Who
I
was
was
the-
I was an English major, so yeah.
Me too. Wayne was my advisor.
And I had also had Virginia West. She retired, I think, while I was here. Maybe I got to have Dr. S.V. Miller for a semester. He had retired, but he came back and taught a class. Barbara Tedford, Martha Keating taught the creative writing class. All those folks. It was an impressive English department when I was here.
Did you have any of Virginia West? I'm not sure if she called them Appalachian Studies courses, but that's basically what they were.
Appalachian Literature to Virginia West. We used a book that the anthology put together by Jack Higgins Clark, I believe. It was a. Is that correct? Am I just getting the name right? Yep, that was the anthology that we used in Virginia West's Appalachian Literature class. Very influential.
I found it amazing that sorry to take it. Virginia West, West Virginia, and she was probably the first Appalachian Studies course ever offered in the nation. Was offered here, probably 78, 77. I mean, I'm saying, I mean, I don't know if
We'll
I'm
argue
correct.
about that later.
Yeah.
But and what's impressive today is, I mean, at that time, that anthology that we used in that class, that was, there wasn't a lot of that then. And now there is so much.
What was the anthology again? I'm sorry.
Voices from the Hills.
Thank you.
Jack Higgins, maybe, and I may have put Park Orlando thing or someone else. But I think it was Jack Higgins was the editor of Voices from the Hills. I still have mine. I think it's kind of hard to, I think that is an anthology that's not real easy to come by now. Yep,
I'd imagine I still have it. I'm looking.
very influential time for me.
Thank you.
You have a real talent for descriptive visual storytelling in your poems. Is that something that came naturally to you or something you really had to work on?
Well, I think, I was telling them in class today, I think it's twofold. Until we had this discussion one time in a workshop, and it's like, how did you become such a noticer and observer? And I said, well, my earliest memories of my dad was carrying me around as a toddler, and we would go outside in the yard, and he would say, look at the gleams on this flower, see the petals are pink. I mean, he would give these descriptions, or even in the house, I mean, he was always teaching you to notice, and then he would always say, for entertainment, let's go take a hike. We'd go in the woods, we'd look at, he was just always a very calm, gentle person that taught you to notice. But I think that was a big influence as well. And then, as I told the folks in class this afternoon, I was really influenced when I read James Wright's biography. There's a statement in there that said that, if we learn as poets just to write a good description, all the feeling will be there. And I think I have tried to, I think it's more of a natural thing for me, but I think it's something I'm trying to do more intentionally or to get better at.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Tell you what, let's let Patsy know again how much we appreciated her being here. Appreciate it. And some of you I'll see tomorrow in class.
Speak up.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. Yeah, that was great.
I love your the first I have, they also travel through.